As we prepare for Loyola tomorrow, obviously, the last thing I told the team after practice this morning was, for me, and it needs to be for them, the most important day of the year, because obviously, when you lose games consecutively, you've got to continue to get back on your horse and try to move yourself forward. And after 3 games, we haven't been able to do that. And so this is an opportunity to do that against a difficult opponent. But that's what stands in front of us right now. So, that hopefully will be our focus going into tomorrow night's game, that we can ramp up the energy level more consistently, and as a result, be both offensive-minded enough to get opportunities, which I think will present themselves, and continue to work ourselves defensively so that we can shut them down, which will be difficult because they score a lot of points, and they'll have one of the best scorers in America in Collins, and then Fofana, who will become eligible for tomorrow's game. We've been challenged by everything that's in front of us. All things that we've talked about most often, and obviously the schedule has been challenging. But we still got to get back. It's a long season, and we've got to get back on our feet and get back on the winning side of things. And what you're trying to teach the guys, sometimes you need confirmation, and wins can give you those kinds of confirmation. And it's easier to prove a point for me if I can prove it in a win, and that's why it becomes important. And when you lose, certain things that you're trying not to teach or to stay away from can start to seep in to a mindset if you're not careful. But we're a long way from that. We've stayed away from that, and I think the guys are probably as excited or prepared, or whatever adjective you want to use, to play this game as if we were, and we hadn't lost 3 in a row.
You've had 7-8 months with Sean now.
Uh-huh.
You've worked with him the whole time. What is it that makes him a special player?
He's got, I don't know how cliche it is, but he's got an intestinal fortitude like none other. We joke about him in the office, and I refer to him almost more. I mean, he's got a boxer's toughness. He's got a cornerback's mentality as a point guard, and you combine that with a tremendous amount of skill and ability, and you have yourself something pretty good. I mean, sometimes even to a fault where he takes personal challenges. During the Gonzaga game, he was going at Ravio. And sometimes he'll go right at Ravio, like, they're nose to nose in the middle of a ring. And there are other things going around him that maybe he could be concerned about. But, he willed himself into 35 points the other night, not just by his skill level, but, again, he had a heavy heart, and he had some things that he wanted to prove, and he had a stage in which to do it on. And again, as I said, I don't know if we'll see that again. I hope I see it every night, but that was a unique performance.
Do you look at him as a scoring point guard by necessity, or is that his skill set?
Both. I think he will. He's not one of those natural born point guards that see everything the other 9 guys are doing on there all the time, and that's something that he's gotten a lot better at, and got to continue to get better at, is a feel for the game from that position. Although his assists are down from last year because there may be even less options for him to give the ball to. So we've got to do a better job of putting people that can finish around him. But at the same point in time, the necessity of it is that we need him to get a certain amount of shot attempts up every game if we're going to put ourselves in a position to be successful for that night. Not knowing what the season was going to present, the 2 things that I mentioned were to rebound the basketball and to play defense. And, one of the more disappointing things that happened the other night is we gave up 50% shooting, which got us to over 40% field goal percentage defense for the year. And I wanted to stay under 40 for as long as, and as much as we could, and then rebound. And it was the first game we got out rebounded, which it was disappointing. And if at the end of the year, whatever happens, how many victories we get or amass or what have you, I'm gonna go right back to those statistics there and see that as a specific determination of how well we were able to execute what I thought were the controllable issues. So rebound is something we all take pride in, and we talk about it every single day. And I think it's one thing that they've taken a step forward on thus far, and we've still got a long ways to go, obviously, in that.
Has the announcement we got with the mentor today, is that relatively sudden, or has that been building for?
Well, I think it's been ongoing. You know, it hasn't been something that he and I talked about every day or anything like that. I think he was, you know, going through some personal things with regard to his personal life in regard to basketball, and obviously, as a lot of kids do with their future, but it wasn't something that either, you know, he didn't walk in the office and one day and say, you know, I don't want to do this anymore, without us having conversations about it. But, you know, it played out in a way that obviously for him, and I told him this from the moment we started talking about it, that, you know, the one thing you have to look back on is after you go to college, you want to have an enjoyable experience. And for whatever reason, if it's not that, then anybody that wants you to stay or wants you to leave or wants you to do anything is doing it more selfishly. And I wanted to be able to support him in whatever things he was going through or continues to go through, or ultimately as it relates to being at Virginia or not being at Virginia.
Obviously, the loss of Warren and Mentor creates some spots down the road, allows you to do some things in recruiting. Yet, I would imagine that you would not have wanted to go through this year to start off with.
Yeah.
Able-bodied.
Right. You know, and again, you're trying to create a program. One of the big things that you're looking for is continuity. And, you know, if people are coming and people are leaving, and, you know, and it's not as stable, then it affects your continuity. You know, but like anything else I'll do with myself or the players or anybody is take a situation and try to make it into as positive as it can, not just for, in this case, for Dante, but for us as well. You know, and wish both he and Sam very well, and obviously didn't plan on it, didn't ask for it, but it's here, and now we have to look at it from a futuristic standpoint as to how we can turn it into a positive for the rest of the guys on the team.
This has been a program even before you arrived that's been hit with attrition.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that as a fact of life, or is it something that
it's
a goal for you to keep that down?
You know, I think every coach would like to keep it down, but it's a fact of life. You know, it used to be taboo, that word transfer, and I would always say that transfers transfer problems, because it's something that, you know, that they didn't understand at the school that they were at that causes them to look elsewhere. But the way recruiting has been set up over the last 8-10 years, the way that the recruiting rules are as such, you don't get a chance to know a young person or their family, and they don't get a chance to intimately know what they're getting themselves into. So if you look around the country, there is it's almost like commonplace. You know, we took transfers at DePaul. We lost kids. When I was at Connecticut, it happened, and it's happened within this conference. This time of year, you see names come up of people leaving that you wouldn't expect. It's you know, become a part of what we do.
But you said you didn't plan on it, you didn't ask for it. Obviously, from that, I would infer that you didn't push them at all.
No. I mean, again, if we're going to be the program and the team that we want to be, as I said, I'm not going to do anything like that to, you know, cut off my nose, spike my face, and have something come back to haunt not just me, but other players in the program. And I don't really think like that. I don't believe in, you know, kicking guys out or not having. But I have a certain expectation level, obviously, on how they have to conduct themselves both on and off the court. And part of that plays into not here but everywhere. If a guy's existence is that he can't perform at the level that he's comfortable at, then that calls into question their existence, and that's what goes on across the country. The only solace I take in what we're doing or going through is I look at some programs that are on the upside of themselves and know either the people or situations and what they had to go through to get there. And I know that's a process that you go through in life as well as in basketball. And I look at one of my best friends, Carl Hobbs, and their team is ranked in the top 15 in the country and undefeated and having a tremendous year as they did last year. And they won 12 games with these same group of guys 2 years in a row. And I can go back to examples that I've looked at of again, and I do it all holistically. I look in football, and Parcells, who I believe is one of the greatest coaches in any sport, he gets to Dallas and he's got a mess sitting in front of him, and now they're on the verge of being in the playoffs a couple of years later. And so it's an evolutionary process. I know that we've got to go through. Sometimes it's hard for me to be as patient as I have to ask everybody else to be, but I know if we do things the right way, that sooner rather than later we'll be on the plus side of this whole thing. I've got a much better feel. I don't know everything I need to know, obviously, but I got a much better feel for, what this particular school, its academic structure, its athletic structure, its basketball program, what kind of young man would be successful here, not just from a talent standpoint. And so it gives me a much clearer picture on how to move forward. Not just, and again, if you look back, and I just compare a lot of things. There's a lot that has to go on here to create a winning culture, not just a winning team, a winning culture. The team has to be educated. I think there's an education that I go through. There's education that you all as media people go through. Education that the university goes through. Everybody, because it's not something everybody's used to being around on a day-to-day basis. The fan base, everybody. And that's what makes this job so challenging, and at the same time potential to be so rewarding, is because there's so many things that you have to investigate, to touch, to feel, to put your fingerprints on.
Personally, at this time of the season, first year of this program, is it tough to juggle that, molding the program at the same time getting these players to play the way you want them to?
Well, they're not really, but the only thing is that when we have a bad day, do I look at it as a bad day for this team, or do I look at it as a bad day for our program and what we're trying to do? And that's the only, not the only, but that's one of the things you juggle. But I've always, from the first day until now, looked at it both in short and long term. So I've always juggled it from day one in terms of, how I look at things and, what I do for now versus what's going to be really important for the future.